Have you ever looked at a situation and said, it's impossible? Nothing can save this relationship. There's no way I'm getting out of this financial debt. There's no way I'm ever going to be healthy again. You ever looked at yourself and said, man, there's no way I'm ever going to be good. I'm ever going to be free from my addiction or depression. There's just no way I'll ever be loved or accepted. You see, we all have situations in our life that we look at and we just see a wall. It's just impossible. The story we read this morning in Luke is when Gabriel comes to Mary and he tells her that she's going to have a baby, and not just a baby, she's going to have the Messiah. And she says, how can this be? I mean, I've never slept with anyone. Like, you can't have a baby without sleeping with somebody. And Gabriel speaks to her wall of impossibility, and to mine, and to yours. And he says, nothing is impossible with God. Man, how would that change your attitude and your perspective on life if you believed that one verse? Nothing's impossible with God. Would COVID still scare you? Would the election still scare you? Would you still feel inadequate and unworthy when you look at your imperfections and your sins? Would the bills or the medical report or the relationship or whatever it is, would that still seem overwhelming if you knew that nothing was impossible with God? Man, that's why Paul was able to do the things that he did. That's why David was able to do the things that he did. That's why Moses and Joshua and Esther and Peter, that's why they did what they did, was because they're like, oh yeah, nothing's impossible with God. And there's this thing it's deep in my heart, and I don't know if it's my personality or my upbringing or whatever, but I feel like if I just do enough, then I'll be able to understand certain things. Like if I just read the whole Bible, or study for a certain amount of time, or be good enough for a certain amount of time, then I will come to this plane of spiritual existence where it'll just click for me. And what God is telling me is that you just have to believe. You just have to believe these simple truths that I tell you, like nothing is impossible with God. Really? Like that's it? Like all I have to do is believe? And if I believe that, I'm able to step into this existence of faith and power, and God's saying, yeah. What about salvation? I mean, don't I have to like be good enough? Don't I have to like let go of my addictions? Don't I have to like, clean up my life first? And God's like, no, you just believe. Believe that I have saved you and you're saved. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that he gave his son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish. And that seems too easy, so I want to make it harder. I want to say, whosoever, fill in the blank, works hard enough for him, gives up enough for him, sacrifices enough for him, does enough for him, then I can know that I'm saved, because I look back and I'm like, look how good I've been. And God's like, nope, you just have to believe. But that feels impossible. Like, really, the most important thing in the universe I can get by just believing? And God says yes. And I say that's impossible, and then he says nothing's impossible with me. Man, sometimes I feel like Zechariah. We studied him yesterday, and Zechariah, he was the priest, and he was doing all the right things, and then when Gabriel shows up and he says, hey, your dreams are coming true, God's gonna do something amazing for you, he's like, yeah, but I've got all these doubts, and I'm just not really sure. Prove it. And I want to be like Mary, that young teenage girl who hasn't gone to preschool. She doesn't have her doctorate in God. She's just a good kid. And Gabriel says, guess what? Your dreams are coming true. You're going to have a baby and he's going to be the Messiah. And she's like, wow, how can that be? And he's like, God's gonna do it. And she's like, I'm his servant. He can do whatever he wants. How cool is that? You know, maybe sometimes we need to step off of our high horses of our religiosity and our works and our study and our do-gooder stuff and just be like Mary and say, hey, I'm your servant, Lord. What do you want to do through me today? It seems too easy, but nothing is impossible with God. So today, whether you feel like you're a super Christian or a super sinner, I want to encourage you with the same words that Gabriel spoke to a frightened girl long ago. He said, nothing is impossible with God. And when she said, I am the Lord's servant, may it be as you have said. What she's saying is, God's got this. He is good and I trust in him. And that is the first step that we take that pulls us into the life that we want to live. So today, look up, smile, and say, nothing is impossible with my God. God's got this. God bless.